So here we are. I want to talk to you about manta ray, sustainable manta ray tourism in Kona, Hawaii. Let me begin over again, okay, Ross? I was all thrown out by the director. Aloha! Welcome to Ocean Fair 2024. We're going to talk about manta rays and celebrating 30 years of sustainable manta ray tourism in Hawaii. I represent the Manta Pacific Research Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to research, education, and conservation concerning manta rays in the marine environment. We were established in 2003 here in Kailua, Kona, Hawaii. My name is Keller, Laros. I'm a PADI Master Scuba Diver and Trainer. I've been teaching scuba since 1985. I moved to Kona in 1991, and I started working at Jack's Diving Locker, where I've been leading people out on day dives, night dives, and particularly manta ray dives. I have over 14,000 log dives. I conducted my very first manta ray night dive in 1985 with Jeff Leishner. I want to talk to you guys about manta rays, about the dive and snorkel experience here in Hawaii, about dive site management, as well as about sustainable ecotourism, which we've learned a lot about over the last 30 years. First of all, the places where the manta rays primarily congregate for the divers and snorkelers to visit them are up north in front of the Mauna Kea Beach Hotel, at the Gardenial Cove, which is right opposite Kona International Airport at Keauhou Bay, and then the original spot down in Keauhou at Pa'akai Point at the location of the present-day Outrigger Kona Resort and Spa. The hotel shines bright lights into the shallow water in front of the hotel, and the lights attract plankton, and the manta rays come to feed on the plankton. Manta rays need to eat about 12% of their body weight every week in plankton, so the accumulation of plankton in the lights is really good for the manta rays because they get a nice healthy meal, and it's great for the humans because we get to see the manta rays. The manta ray night dive is just an amazing experience. We've been doing them at Jack's Diving Locker since 1984 when Jeff Leishner logged his very first dive. Gary Simons, one of my friends who's a captain, he's out driving a boat right now, he logged his first manta ray night dive back in 1978 with a company called Gold Coast Divers with a guy named Steve Kaiser. But it's been going on for a long time, but it didn't really take off until the 1990s. In 1991, when I moved to Kona, we started taking photographs of the manta rays, and we really quickly realized that each manta ray has a unique set of spots on their abdomen, and we're able to identify the individual manta rays. The things that make it easy to identify a manta ray, in addition to the unique spots on their chest, on their ventral side between their gills, the gender, is it a male or a female manta ray? Do they have any scars or injuries that make them easy to distinguish from the rest? We started adding the manta rays to our database. Originally it was just a scrapbook and we glue photographs into it, but now at www.mantapacific.org you can find access to the database. We currently have 339 manta rays in there. Also, we have an app on the Apple App Store, free for iOS users, and the Manta Tracker app, you can get that and have access to all the manta rays right from your phone or your iOS device. The manta ray night dive, as most of you know because you've done this, is just a transformative event for people. A lot of people that have never experienced anything like it. I've had people come out crying. It was so moving for them. People like Jeannie here just grin with their eyes when the manta rays swim over their head. So it's really special for divers, for snorkelers, for people who've never seen a manta ray before. But it's also very special for manta rays because having people in the water with the manta rays allows the humans to help the manta rays. This is a picture of Koei. She showed up, one of our manta rays, she showed up with this fishing line wrapped all around her pectoral fin. And three of us took about 20 minutes cutting the fishing line off of her. And she was able to heal on the back part of her wing, but the front part of her wing didn't heal. But who knows what would have happened if we hadn't been able to get that fishing line off. We see lots and lots of accidental entanglement, fishing hooks, also ropes and things like that. A lot of times people are out there and they're properly equipped to help the manta ray. If you can cut through the fishing line, you can get a whole bunch of line off, like the bottom right shot there. But if you're properly equipped but not executing it properly, you can try to cut wire with something designed to cut line, and you can see the manta ray took off with the dive tool there. Oh. Yeah, so there's a manta ray out there with the dive tool, because that's a wire, not a line. That wasn't me, by the way.
It's orange.
That was not me. But oftentimes, if you're properly equipped and experienced, you can help other animals as well, like this dolphin that everyone has seen. Was able to cut the fishing line off of that dolphin, and we've seen that dolphin since, and he's doing well. Sometimes, despite the best intentions, you might be equipped, you might be in a position, but you just might not have the guts to try to help the animal, no matter how close it comes to you. I had to let that one go by. People are like, why didn't you help him? It's like, it's a tiger shark. But in 1993, the local dive shops got together and wrote the guidelines for the manta ray night dive. Prior to 93, people rarely did the manta ray dive. There'd be maybe 1 or 2 boats a week. By 93, we'd have like 2 or 3 boats a night, and most people are content just to watch manta rays, but every now and again somebody tried to grab them, or some people would be doing some really stupid stuff like leaving lines in the water and things. So the local dive shops got together with the help of PADI Project Aware, and we wrote the guidelines, which are designed to make the dive safe and fun for people and manta rays. In a nutshell, rule 1, we want the divers to stay on the bottom, being careful of the marine environment, don't harm the coral or the bottom life. We want the snorkelers to stay on the surface. We got to give the manta rays room to maneuver. Divers, shine your lights up to attract plankton. Snorkelers, shine your lights down to attract plankton. Don't blow bubbles in the manta ray's face. Back in the early 90s, the manta rays were still getting to know people, and the bubbles freaked them out. The baby manta rays to this day are frightened of the bubbles. We never hold our breath scuba diving, but if a manta ray is swimming towards you, just try to inhale until it passes over your head. Some of the manta rays, I think, actually enjoy the tactile sensation of the bubbles, and I think sometimes they find that there's accumulations of plankton in the bubbles, and they seem to do a lot of eating in the bubbles. But the babies, we want to help out. Try not to blow bubbles in their face. Don't touch the manta ray is the most important thing. They do have a protective coating of mucus on their body. If you touch the manta ray, you can rub some of the mucus off, and it opens them up to skin infections and parasites. And then keep lights and things like that out of the water column. When people started getting selfie sticks on their GoPros, it was like a forest of selfie sticks sticking up, and consequently manta rays would run into them and things like that. So try to keep the lights out of the water column. And then lastly, stay with your group, right? Human safety is the most important factor out there, so stay with your group. The guidelines have worked absolutely fantastic. Everyone adheres to them, and the manta rays are very, very comfortable with people now. One of the first things we did at Manta Pacific was when we became a foundation, we started an agenda to get manta rays protected in state waters. So we went to the West Hawaii Fishery Council in 2003 and gave a presentation to them, and they could make administrative rules for West Hawaii waters, and they agreed that they wanted to protect manta rays, but at the time, the only rules and penalties they could have was a $150 fine, which wasn't really substantial enough, and it was only for West Hawaii. So we went to the House of Representatives in 2005, and our freshman representative, a guy named Josh Green, introduced the bill. He was a freshman representative. It was never heard in committee. In 2006, we reintroduced it, and the culmination was that the House created a House resolution urging the Department of Land and Natural Resources to study manta rays and come up with a management plan. There was no funding with it. It was just a resolution, so there was no teeth behind it. So nothing happened in 2007, 2008. In 2009, we reintroduced the bill concurrently in the House by Denny Kaufman, who was our Kona rep, and Senator Green. And in 2009, Governor Linda Lingle signed the law making it illegal to kill or capture manta rays in the state of Hawaii. It does have some teeth to it, $500, $1,000, $10,000, and confiscate your boat. And the manta rays, first place in the United States, manta rays were protected here in Hawaii. The manta ray dive has just really taken off since then. The snorkeling has become the majority of the activity now, and at night it's not uncommon to see up to 30 boats in the water with hundreds of snorkelers in the water and dozens of divers. In 2012, the U.S. Coast Guard sent an email out to all the dive shops in town and the snorkel operators, and requested that everyone attend a meeting at the Bill Fisher Club out at Keauhou Harbor. And at that meeting, we had the representatives of the State Division of Aquatic Resources, Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation, DOE Care, Division of Conservation and Resource Enforcement, as well as the Coast Guard. And the Coast Guard pretty much said, Coast Guard's not their jurisdiction. They only regulate commercial vessels, inspected vessels, and their crews and captain's licenses. But if there was a collision or an accident or something like that where it happened, then the Coast Guard would get involved. And then the Department of Land and Natural Resources said, we don't really have any rules about it, but you don't want us making the rules. You guys as an industry need to make up your own rules and live by those rules, and then there won't be a problem. So with that in mind, we created a working group So we held 10 meetings at the end of 2012 and early 2013, and we had about 40 participants from the community. And we wrote the guidelines and the standards for how to conduct a manta ray night dive. And some of it's just no-brainer stuff, like go slow as you enter and exit the area, don't have any lights or lines hanging in the water, post a lookout, don't drive your boat where divers are. Some of other things which are very important and also I believe no-brainers are make sure that your crew are trained in as lifeguards, first aid, CPR, and things like that. We took the rules back to the Department of Land and Natural Resources, and they said, great, you guys have to enforce it. We can't do anything to help you with that. In 2014, the DLNR sent out there was House concurrent resolution asking the DLNR to come up with manta ray safety assessment and come up with plans on how to handle the industry. To that end, they hired a guy named Sam Kahn from Hawaii Pacific University, and he came out and did a very, very thorough study of the manta dive sites. And he found that lots of divers, lots of boats, lots of snorkelers, and you can see the numbers here. He was counting, and he came out twice. He came out in the summer and then again in the fall. Up to 290 people and 26 boats at Keauhou Bay, up to 310 people at Keauhou. I mean, that's a lot of people, 500 people a night. And Sam's big concern was that with boats driving around and people in the water, the possibility of a boat strike on human was mathematically certain to happen, and we do know that that has happened since then. But nothing came of it. It got to the cover of Hawaii Business Magazine, asking, the people wanted, the industry wants help, wants direction from the state. To that end, Doe Board put together a meeting and they wanted to talk about the manta ray viewing sites. And they gave a presentation, talked about maybe what they could do, but nothing really came of that. We'd already invented the wheel in 2013, but nothing came of it. About the same time, I was lucky enough to attend the International Union on the Conservation of Nature, which was held in the United States for the very first time in Honolulu. And NOAA put on a seminar called Wet and Wild about sustainable marine ecotourism. And it was it was run by NOAA, but it had National Marine Fisheries, it had Doe Care, Doe Board, DAR, commercial industry, the University of Hawaii. It must have about 50 or 60 people in there. And it turns out that NOAA has studied this in the past, and they have implemented sustainable marine ecotourism guidelines in other parts of the country. And they find that the best ecotourism is stuff that minimizes the impact to the species and their habitat, honors local cultural perspectives and practices, and it's economically viable. Yeah. Furthermore, it needs to exist within a present legal framework. There needs to be an exchange of information between the state and the people conducting the commerce. There needs to be infrastructure and enforcement and trained operators and an assessment of demand. Free market economy, people will just get into the market and try to make as much money as they can, kind of regardless of the demand. Trained operators, if they're required to be trained, and if part of the training is required for you to have a commercial permit, people will do it, but free market won't pay the extra money for the trained operators if they're not required to. Enforcement, if you can, get enforcement people, but the state's always short of money, and at any given time they might only have one or two enforcement officers on the island. But we wanted to do our part, so what we did was put together a Manta Naturalist course, which we taught through Hawaii Community College Palamanui campus and the Office of Workforce Development. And we taught it here at Jack's Diving Locker as well as out at the Palamanui campus, and we had about 50 people come through the class. It was a $1 match, so if it was $50 for the employer to send a person to the course, it was a 2-day class, just 2 afternoons, and then it was matched by the state Office of Workforce Development. And we taught the participants proper information and facts about manta rays, as well as how to give a presentation to their customers that would be meaningful and pertinent to the experience. And some of the people, PADI, I think you took this class.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I know. You can see Allie sitting in the front row of this picture here. And we taught it, like I said, maybe 5 times, about 50 people came through it. It was fairly popular, and people have been asking about doing it again, but it didn't pay. I do now have a Manta Pacific Research Foundation Manta Naturalist class, which is a PADI distinctive specialty. It does not require any diving or in water, it's just completely academic. We plan on teaching that to kind of take over where this one left off. Since that time, one of the things I've been really hitting on with legislation to try to increase safety and sustainability of the manta ray tourism is the human safety aspect. Back in 2016, the state identified snorkeling as a leading cause of death among visitors to Hawaii. More people drown snorkeling than they do swimming, scuba diving, and surfing combined. They've identified something called sudden onset respiratory edema syndrome that strikes people with pre-existing conditions such as age, pulmonary, cardio issues. Oftentimes, people don't have the classic drowning where they get splashed in the face and start coughing and struggling. More, they're just snorkeling, and all of a sudden their lungs fill with fluid and they lose consciousness. It's easy to train people, right? You can get first aid, CPR, lifeguard training. Is a really busy slide. I apologize, but human safety is important, and an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Since that time, we've continued to try to increase the level of safety and sustainability at the dive sites. In 2017, Representative Nicole Lowen, introduced a bill in the House of Representatives that would require one guide for every 8 participants in the water for manta ray snorkel, and that the guides all had to be trained as lifeguards, and lifeguard training includes first aid, CPR, AED, and oxygen. It also required that commercial operators have an AED on the boat and a backboard. We got that one, it never got out of committee in 2017. 2018, we reintroduced it. This time it was just to have no backboard because they felt that smaller boats couldn't carry a backboard. We made it just one crew trained as a lifeguard in 2018, and again we got a lot of pushback. The big commercial snorkel operators really hated the idea of having to have their crew trained as lifeguards. 2019, we introduced it again. It got out of the House, it got into the Senate, and it died in the Senate committee there. It didn't die, it was deferred, which means no action was taken further on in 2019. In 2020, it was still deferred because it could have been reinvigorated, but then COVID happened, and the House and Senate just turned all their attention to that. This past year, in 2023, we introduced the bill again, got it out of the House. The legislators all seem to be in favor of it, but it just never makes it to the next level. It did get to the Senate, but it was never scheduled in the committee. It's almost a no-brainer that the people that are supervising people in the water be trained as lifeguards, but they just can't seem to do it. The Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation constantly testify against rules pertaining to this. They say that it's not their responsibility. They say it's the Coast Guard's responsibility, which is not true. The Coast Guard registers and licenses captains, and the crew training Coast Guard requires, and those of you with their boat crew in the know, man overboard firefighting drills are required by the Coast Guard, but not in-water supervision or first aid or CPR or anything like that. So I continue to push forward in that realm, trying to increase safety. I figure if we raise the bar, change the dial just a little bit, we can hopefully make it a safer, more sustainable practice. Hopefully get rid of the superfluous dive operators and snorkel operators who aren't interested really in customer satisfaction or safety. They're more interested in the buck. The DOBOR has continued to have meetings and make plans. They're thinking about making it an ORMA, an Ocean Recreation Management area, which would allow them to make administrative rules. The past round, they thought that maybe the administrative rules would include not being able to sell your business or give it away to somebody unless it's a lineal descendant to your own family, which if you're a business owner, doesn't really make sense to have a business that you can't sell. Some of the other things was assigned permits. They wanted to have commercial permits awarded by a lottery. And I don't know if you guys heard this, but they did that with the surf schools down in Keauhou. The same person won all 3 surf lotteries, and then he felt bad about it because obviously a lottery system is just a lottery. It's always been my feeling that the permits should be awarded based on merit. DOBOR has said, oh, we can't do that, we can't do that. And to get into the University of Hawaii, it's merit-based. It's not just a lottery, and it's not based on a fee. That was another thing they said, people would bid on permits, which means that the deepest pocket gets it, not necessarily the person who's most qualified to do it. Some of the things that they wanted to do did make sense, prohibit anchoring, which is actually already prohibited. Participant guideline ratio, we came up with that in 2012. They're trying to reinvent the wheel here. they've had designated moorings, so only one operator can have a mooring at a time, and you can only use your particular mooring. And again, if they're trying to be so grandiose in the rules that they want to make to fix this when the wheel was already invented back in 2012. And every time they announce these things, they get a lot of pushback. People say, you know, you're going to put us out of business, we're going to sue you. Some of the Bureau of Land and Natural Resources meetings, some of the commercial operators said, we've got an attorney and we're going to sue the state if you guys try to take away our permits. So they kind of backed off again at that time. Who knows if it's enough? This is Eli, the manta ray, not the diver. And we saw him on the afternoon dive and he was fine. On the night dive, he'd been chopped up by a boat. We've seen him since then, he didn't recover fully, but it was just a boat that was coming in too fast without somebody on the surface. That did make a splash in the news, and that got out. And then very next day, coincidentally enough, DLNR came out with a new draft of rules that they've been sitting on apparently, but the press got them out. And so the new draft of rules, they were talking about some things that could really help the situation. One is prop guards. Some of the dive shops and snorkel operators in town currently do have prop guards, like Kona Snorkel Tours, I believe, has a prop guard on their boat. Jet boats don't need them. Most of the boat owners are opposed to them because it causes more drag, less fuel efficiency. But a prop guard, like in Florida, I understand prop guards are required whenever there's manatees in the area because props are really dangerous to manatees as well. Sustainable marine ecotourism. There was a conference, pardon me, not a conference, a study that was done by two gentlemen, Mark Needham and Brian Schuster of the University of Hawaii and Oregon State University back in 2018, and they had their grad students come out and they surveyed 444 divers and snorkelers out at Keauhou Harbor and asked them a series of questions, and then they came and they presented their results to us. 82% of the snorkelers felt that they were crowded, 77% of the passengers felt that the boats were crowded, 69% of the scuba divers felt that they were crowded. And Mark and Brian, they felt that the answer to that was to have an education interpretation at the beginning of the experience. And those of us that are out there, you know, you hear people, and I think there's a wide variety of the experience that people are sharing. You know, some of it is, I mean, like tabloid sort of briefings, and then some of it is really, really thoughtful, heartfelt, informed briefings. But, you know, certainly people, if they get a feeling of what they're going to experience, tell them what they're going to experience, they experience, and then tell them what they've experienced, and they can get a better feeling for it and hopefully come away very, very happy about the manta rays. One of the things that I've heard over the years is that they want to make rules for Keauhou and Keauhou Bay, and not for up at Mauna Kea. You know, I began by saying they do them at Mauna Kea. Have any of you guys done the Mauna Kea dive? Water's like less than 20 feet deep there, and they got boats driving around, and you get 6 or 10 manta rays in 20 feet of water, and snorkelers, and people are getting in off the shore. And people are doing commercial trips now from Kauai down there, and they're putting divers and snorkelers in the water. To make the rules just for Keauhou Bay and Keauhou seems absurd to me because the free market's going to go to Mauna Kea, you know, and I think it needs to be for the industry. Permits should be merit-based, as I've said. The crews should be trained for in-water supervision, not necessarily dive master, which is a professional level, but lifeguard. Lifeguarding is about the lowest form of workforce development. And it's pretty much well understood in society that people that are trained as lifeguards are going to be better citizens because they can react if there is an emergency, somebody does need medical assistance, somebody is choking. I mean, all that stuff, we've all done the first aid training here. When we were in the House of Representatives, the guys from Maui run the big snorkel trips over there. They said they can't get their people lifeguard trained because there's no one in Maui to train lifeguards. And I thought, that's got to be BS, right? There was no one in Maui to train lifeguards. You had to go to Oahu or you had to come to Kona to get trained as lifeguards. And I was ready to call BS. And you know why there's no one to train lifeguards? Because it's not required anywhere, right? You know? And I talked with Kara Osada, who she trains lifeguards in our pool out here. And she said she contacted all the big snorkel operators over there in Maui and said she could fly over and in 2 afternoons train their crew to be lifeguards, but the cost was too prohibitive for them. They just didn't want to pay for that. Which kind of goes to show you what they're really thinking about is more about the bottom line than about the safety or even making better crew members. The state has told me that they can't require lifeguard training on boat crews. It's not in their purview. But if you're preparing food on a commercial boat, you have to have somebody with a food handler's card. And if you're serving alcohol on a boat, you have to have somebody with an alcohol provider's card. So clearly the state understands the importance of having food prepared properly. And the state understands the importance of having alcohol, made available properly. But having people supervised in the water who don't know how to swim by people that are trained, state doesn't think that that's their purview. And it all gets back to dough-borne. Kind of as a sidebar, right? We were involved in legislation this past year over there in Honolulu. I was there with Brett Lowen trying to get our safety bills passed, and our House representative from up in Waimea, David Tarnas, he's, some of you guys know him, his kids have all done the camps here. David said he wasn't going to be scheduling any of DOBOR's legislation in his committee because he felt that the management, the leadership at DOBOR was so out of touch with the constituency, the ocean users and the commercial ocean users, that it was just a waste of his time. And I'd heard that from one of the other legislators. David didn't come out and say that himself, but it kind of shows you like how dysfunctional the people who are in charge of management are, that they can't, they resisted 12 years of Manta management. They've resisted everything that could come and make it easier and safer for us. But that's about it. We've been celebrating 30 years of manta ray safety and sustainability. It impacts thousands and thousands of people. I'm sure you guys have been out there and seen people come away moved by it. We've had people who went out and snorkeled it, came back, got certified to dive with it, who brought their kids back, brought their grandchildren back. I've seen people take infants in the water to see manta rays. I don't know what they were thinking, but I mean, it's the kind of thing you want to share with people. And greatest thing for me is that every day I get to share that magic. And if we can just get one person on every trip to come away more enthusiastic about the ocean, about ocean environment, about ocean conservation, and if they fall in love with manta rays like I did, hopefully we can make that happen. And thus concludes Manta Pacific Research Foundation's Ocean Fair 2024 presentation. I'll let you look at some manta rays.